Hi, everybody. Robert Phoenix here, and welcome to the Friday FARcast. We're getting a bit of a late start. Let me just bring my trusty Al a little bit closer into view. There we go. Should have a Jasper sighting shortly. He's just woken up from the couch, and let me just gotta get. How about let's go left side Al today? Let's break it up. This will be my twin pillars of wisdom today. Hey, Judy. So we have the wise, hey, Michael from Austin. What's going on, brother? We have the wise Al on the left, and we have the large, what would you call that? Hey, hydrocephalic Anunnaki guy on the right. There we go. We've got our symbols in place, and I rest firmly between the two of them. With that, see that right there on my left shoulder? That's actually a trophy from baseball. Yeah, that's a baseball. That's a championship trophy, by the way. Team I managed. It's right up there. Pinnacle of my life achievement right there. That little trophy. Yeah, we're bringing back. We're taking the power back. That's what we're doing. We're taking the power back from these symbolic and occult power brokers who have stolen it away from us. We are reclaiming those symbols. You're absolutely right. Those words were come right out of my mouth. Reclaiming those symbols. The owl is a great symbol, man. I love owls. What they stand for, they're awesome. Hey, JW, owls are awesome beings, man. They're incredible. They can see in the night. They're predators. They're, nesters. They're a significant part of the ecosystem. They're remarkable animals. Absolutely. It would be really strange if your head could go all the way around. I know, right? There are some people who have incredible, they can't do a 360, but I bet they can do about a 330 or 320. Yeah. So, not me, though. That's about it. I've seen some people get some radical neck stuff going on. So what's happening out there? How is everyone as we all assemble and bring our energies together? We're like Wu-Tang, man. We're like one. So today we're going to talk about a few things that I began to get into a bit yesterday. And it's about the world that's being created right beneath us, and we're not even aware. Hello, Amy. We're not even aware of really what's going on. And even some of us who are aware, or at least we like to think we're aware, can't even begin to wrap our heads around the magnitude. Hi, Shanna. Can't even begin to wrap our heads around the magnitude of what's being created underneath our very feet. So today I'm going to talk about China's One Belt, One Road initiative and China's master plan for not only global trade and commerce dominance, but I feel like that the real battle is who's going to control 5G. Because 5G is going to be the weaponized technology that will be a game changer. And whoever gets a hold of 5G first and can implement 5G first, unfortunately, will probably wind up controlling not just bandwidth, but what happens to our bodies and our minds. Am I going to discuss getting rid of us bad citizens? Possibly, if it comes up. Because what's happening is that while we're barking at one another, while we're fighting amongst one another about whether or not somebody who was drunk and passed out had sex with somebody else who was drunk and passed out, right around the age of 17 or 18, roughly, when they're probably both minors. Maybe Kavanaugh being 18 might have been not a minor at the time. but of drinking age. So we're running around and we're fighting each other. We're fighting each other. We're going after. Hi, Sophia. What's going on? We're fighting. We're fighting against one another, a basic fundamental level in that arena, but it's all over the place. Now it's about, is Kanye West mentally ill? So now the left is coming after Kanye West, saying that he needs to be locked up. Kanye West needs to find a good hospital bed and another round of electroshock therapy treatment. That's what the left is saying now. And maybe it's because Kanye West has been programmed to flip his Gemini programming and go from the left to the right, literally and figuratively. But that's now a big discussion and debate. Of course, it comes into the realm of mental health, which I talked about yesterday to a great extent, and who has the ability to have an opinion. Oh, look who's here. I knew he'd show up. There he is. The J-Man. Say hi to everybody. There you go. Takes me a while just to let him have his little moment here. His little star turn. It's like clockwork, right? There he is. This cat cracks me up. What do I think will happen if the Republicans win the midterms in a landslide? What do I think will happen? I think you will see rioting in the streets. That's what I think. I think you're going to see people just lose their shit, flip their wigs. It's going to get very ugly, but there's not a whole lot that the left can do. I mean, if the Republicans do win, I think we probably would be closer to a state of martial law than ever before. Yeah, there's a new moon in Scorpio, same day as the election. That's correct. The nodes also shift that night, election night. Later that night, they go from 0 Leo to 29 Cancer and 29 Capricorn. Yeah, it's going to be a heavy time. If the Democrats take the House, and I've got a feeling that they won't now. They had a gambit in Jupiter to Sag the next day. Yep, absolutely. Jupiter, yep. So it's a big, big time astrologically. And I have a feeling that the Democrats won't win. They put a gambit. They went all in on trying to unseat Brett Kavanaugh. And it didn't work for a number of reasons. The first reason is Brett Kavanaugh is connected. Brett Kavanaugh is likely a Freemason. We know that he is more than likely a Jesuit as well. So, I mean, Brett Kavanaugh has friends in high places. He's connected to the Bush administration and the Bush crime cabal. And whether or not you think that they have any influence or don't, they still do. They have a great deal of influence because they have a lot of resources, a lot of money, and they have dirt on everybody else, just like everybody else does. So he's connected to that syndicate and that crime family. Hello, Lee Veltman. So if the Democrats win, then we're looking at an impeachment process with Trump. And I think that that's quite likely. But I also feel like that there's going to be improprieties with the voting system on election night, which will throw everything into like full tilt. That's what's going to happen. And I feel like we're going to get chaos no matter what. I did a series of charts on them on election night on Sunday night and looked at the charts over the course of the evening, with the last one being really close to Trump's ascendant, which means I think that this administration is going to get what it wants. Feels like Kavanaugh was the normal deal, and the Dems' defense was just to let out the crazy, not the capable. Kavanaugh is not the normal deal. Kavanaugh is your worst friend when it comes to personal freedoms and personal rights. He has a track record of selling those down the river to the highest bidder. 5G comes into this, by the way, because 5G will be a ubiquitous system, and it will have the potential of grabbing all kinds of data, and not just the data that we are offering up online. Jasper's tilting the world here. Okay, buddy. Yeah, I know. You love this screen. Yeah, you're into it, aren't you? Jasper, just say hi. Just say hi to everyone. Here he is. So Kavanaugh, what did Chief Justice Roberts send to the Ninth Circuit Court? Do you think martial law might actually be necessary now? That's one of the things that we've talked about over the course of the last 2 years with this show. Once Trump came into office, this whole idea that there could be military tribunals, or because he aligned himself with the military. There are two branches of intelligence. There's the government intelligence, CIA, NSA, FBI, and probably a few other departments that we don't really have the initials for. And then there's military intelligence, which is naval intelligence and the Air Force. So the rumor is that Trump was essentially courted by military intelligence versus the CIA, NSA-based intelligence. And, let's be clear, there's some crossover there, but in other instances, there aren't. So Trump is definitely a candidate and a president that does represent the military. He'll do whatever the military pretty much wants him to do. He's already shown that in terms of military budgets. He has sworn fealty to the military again and again. He's always praising them in his speeches. And I don't think there's any disconnect or any cognitive dissonance between Trump's lauding of the military and his affinity for them and commitment to them in public or in private. I think it probably remains the same. He went to a military academy. He surrounded himself with generals. This is part of who Trump is. He's got Mars on his ascendant, which represents the military. So there could be the possibility of martial law. And I mean, it's a real gambit. So I'm down the middle because I think martial law opens up a really, really dangerous precedent. Like once you go to martial law, I don't think you get the government that you had back. And that may be a good thing or a bad thing. And with Trump, it's always been like a combination of the two. And I was talking with this about somebody yesterday. I was talking to somebody about this yesterday because you see this with Trump. He'll come out. I was talking with Lexi, who's my friend and who's a chemtrail activist, really powerful woman. And you'll see this with Trump. Like he like raised the middle finger to climate change. He did that. It's like, wow, that's great. He just didn't bend over to the climate change globalists. That's fantastic. The green mafia. But then on the other hand, he gets up to his third eye into prophecy in the Middle East by moving the embassy, the consulate, from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem and recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, which for many years that was verboten. And he's done pretty much everything Bibi Netanyahu has asked him to do. He's cut the funding for Palestinians. He's basically, just turned a blind eye to their suffering and the conditions of their human rights. He sells arms to Saudi Arabia so they can carry out their war on Yemen, so they can somehow get in there and take Yemen's oil because they're running out of oil. And he backs all these things, which I think are deplorable. But on the other hand, he has some interesting things. He got us out of TPP. He got us out of the climate change scam. So you're always going to get this with Trump. And that will always be part of his legacy. If people can step back and really look at the effects of his presidency, because you'll see both the theoretical good and the bad. You'll see the benefit, and then you also see the deficit to what he's been up to. And some of these are going to have really long-ranging effects, like the tariffs. We don't really know how the tariffs are going to affect the long-range scale of how things are going to evolve geopolitically on the planet. I mean, the tariffs could ultimately lead to not just a trade war with China, but a real war with China, which I think, by the way, is probably inevitable. It's probably inevitable because here's what's happening. The powers that be who want to create a one world order, that is their goal. Like, make no mistake, they want to create a one world order, and to think that that's paranoid or delusional, or you're patently wrong. Now, I'm of the mind that they may not care to some extent how that one world order looks. Like they could throw it to the left, and it could be a top-down sort of corporate socialist model where the 1% control everything even more than they do. We have social credits. We have the social credit score. We have universal income. I mean, that could be one version. The other version could be kind of a top-down fascistic model that might have actually maybe more property rights involved, maybe more of a kind of a, sort of a touch point with capitalism, but rights could be restricted and limited under that model as well. Very, very clear, defined, don't step outside these lines, sort of, true fascism, right? I mean, I think they could go either way. I think their preference in some ways would be the top-down corporate socialist model. So what we have now is like, okay, if the globalists, they always want to hedge their bets. Like the Rothschilds they've always bet on both candidates. And Trump and Hillary Clinton are no exception to the rule. Trump was bailed out by Wilbur Ross. Wilbur Ross is kind of like the modern day version of Jacob Schiff for the modern day version of the Rothschild dynasty. Wilbur Ross works for them. He was their point person at Goldman. And when Trump got into trouble and had to declare bankruptcy, he was bailed out by Wilbur Ross twice, which is why Wilbur Ross is the Secretary of Commerce. It's a payback on a personal level for Wilbur Ross. But Wilbur Ross was using Rothschild money to bail Trump out. So Trump is really beholden to the Rothschilds. And Hillary Clinton, of course, is beholden to the Rothschilds as well. And she has a personal relationship with Linda Rothschild, who showed up on a campaign trail. The Rothschilds have been doing this for years. They don't care who wins because that candidate will be beholden to them. The thing that's different about Trump is that he has the Sun-Uranus conjunction in Gemini. He's a total wild card. Trump, you don't know what you're going to get with Trump from day to day. You do know you're going to get chaos, and you do know you're going to get change. And I've said this before. When he was in the process of getting elected, I said that even if you were Trump's best business partner, you would have to watch your back because ultimately he is not trustworthy. Now, when you say, well, that's not a good quality, well, it depends. Let's say you're anti-big business, anti-big trade, and here comes the TPP, and the United States is supposed to be in the TPP, and all of a sudden Trump cuts the ties, and you're like, oh, what the hell happened here? But then he supports this omnibus bill, and then this is the story of Donald Trump, and it will be his legacy. It will be both positive and negative. It will be both good and bad. It will be to some extent even left and right. So just keep that in mind. And what he's doing and the role that he's playing is something that can't even really be defined or even opined on at this point. Maybe 50 years from now, we'll have a better view of the nuclear impact of the Trump presidency, for better or worse. But we cannot define it right now because it is chaos in motion, it is chaos in process, and there is a destabilization that is taking place all over the place. I mean, Trump has been more disruptive than any president, not just in recent memory, but in history. When I say disruptive, I mean openly disruptive. Like the Clintons were really disruptive, but they were deceptively disruptive. They were doing everything cloak and dagger, behind the scenes, selling us out to China, doing all that bullshit. They were incredibly disruptive. George Bush was very disruptive, but that was done under the cloak of, oh, woe is me, look at what happened. All these terrible events happened. They just randomly happened. Well, no, they did not just randomly happen. Obama was disruptive. He was disruptive in a different way, more covert. Now, he was deceptive in the fact that he wanted to bring the Alinsky project to the White House. And he did a really good job initiating the Alinsky project by creating or being a part of Black Lives Matter and basically cleaving and separating Black America from white America, and creating lots of racial strife and tension, and never once taking any kind of accountability or responsibility for that. He was basically taking kerosene and just throwing it on the flames. Anytime somebody came, I've talked about this before. Anytime somebody got shot, which is, and I don't mean to sound cold-hearted, but this is a more than common occurrence in some of the worst neighborhoods of this country. You get cops that are, have itchy trigger fingers because they don't know who's packing. Some of these cops work out crazy. You look at these cops; they're built like, they're built like polar bears. They're huge, these guys. And and I believe that a lot of that bulk comes from the fact that there's probably a steroid community inside the police force. They go and they work out and they probably take steroids. There's also psychological tests that police have to pass. If you have too much empathy and too much compassion, or you're too intelligent, you don't make the force. Unless, of course, you're looking for a detective or somebody has some, quote unquote intelligence, in which case, if you're super off the charts, then they may say, hey, we're going to get you in here, we're going to fast track you, we're going to get you another position. Right? That happens. So you get this combination and you get them into neighborhoods that are really fucked up and depressed and poor, and generations of scarring, young men without positive male role models. And you have a recipe for people that get shot. And sometimes the shootings happen and they're terrible. No stories at all natural. Yeah, right. So sometimes sometimes the shootings are overkill. We saw that in Chicago, where a kid got pumped with 16 bullets and the officer was found guilty. Okay, 16 bullets. It's a lot of bullets. And sometimes they happen out of self-defense. So what happened is, during the Obama administration, they just took advantage of this, and they said, okay, well, let's piggyback on it, and let's create a divide and conquer strategy and roll that out. Never once did Obama ever say, you know what, we got to come together as a country. Never once out of any of those shootings, out of any of the violence, out of any of the disruption, the worst being right in his own backyard in Baltimore after the Freddie Gray event. He never came out on the streets or even on TV and said, we got to calm this down. We've got to find a way to love one another and get closer. We got to figure out a way to make our streets safer and respect one another's lives and opinions. He never said that, because that was not his role. He was not meant to say that. So he brought disturbance, but it was all covert. The difference with Trump and all these people is it's above the line. And of course, there's behind the scenes disturbance, but we're seeing it. We're seeing things with Trump that with other presidencies were either covert or part of an "oh, woe is me" program. Oh, look what happened. It's either one, either or. Trump is actively engaging in some level of disturbance, for better or worse. And I don't think we can really make a judgment at this point. I don't think we can. 50 years from now, we might, because the world is going to be very, very different. The world can be really different 2 to 3 years from now, which gets us into our next topic, and the topic of the day, which is what's happening in China with One Belt, One Road, and One Belt and One Road for the proliferation of a 5G network that stretches essentially from China and Korea through North Africa, the Fertile Crescent, the southern part of Russia, and all the way through to Western Europe. Okay, we're going to talk about that today, but we're going to talk about even more than just what's happening in terms of the One Belt, One Road initiative and 5G. There's another thing that's happening, and I really want to thank Charles Freeman for bringing this to my attention. Charles is a really great guy and does a lot of really interesting research into cryptocurrency. And one of the things that he brought to my attention is that there is a major transformation going on with banking. It is huge, huge. So what's taking place in banking? So let's say, for instance, right, there's a thing called SWIFT. And SWIFT is the mechanism that allows banks to transfer money electronically from one bank to another, or from a bank to somebody who is getting a loan from a bank. And it's not as swift as it sounds. It can take a bit of time, this transfer. And when you have this transfer of money, you need something called bridge capital, which is this amount that sits between the person that is doing a loan and the person that is taking them. The bridge capital represents kind of the collateral that stabilizes, both parties. And bridge capital is really, really important. So there's a huge change that's going on now. Goldman Sachs, I talked about this last year when I was in Houston, and I did a big talk on Uranus and Taurus, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today, and the development of cryptocurrencies and blockchain. And at that time, Goldman Sachs had just applied for a patent called Settlecoin, Settlecoin. And Settlecoin is a crypto blockchain that plays the role of being able to have a crypto plank in terms of this bridge capital. Okay, so they're getting in on it, but they're not the only ones. They're not the only ones. There's a company called Ripple, and Ripple is very interesting. And Charles turned me on to Ripple. And Ripple is they're getting ready to provide a full spectrum banking solution that will be able to make SWIFT become antiquated, meaning that transactions will be able to happen in almost simultaneous real time. Think about that. Before, when you were able to have to do these transferences of money through the SWIFT technology, it could take 24 hours, maybe 48 hours. The bridge capital sitting between, basically holding the loan in place so the loan can come in and then go from one party to the other. So this technology, Ripple, will displace SWIFT very rapidly so that the bridge capital will spend less time. This is the key, right? Because even if it's like 48 hours, that bridge capital has to spend time in a place that's inert. So it's not usable, right? It is frozen. It is like cryogenically suspended. So those are, and by the way, these companies are not making like one loan at a time. They're making hundreds, thousands of loans daily. So think of the bridge capital that's suspended for 48 to 24 hours. Well, what would happen if that bridge capital is freed up for a much shorter period of time? What would happen if the mechanism to make a loan and transfer it from one party to another happened very quickly, within a matter of moments? It would change everything. It would change the economic scale. So this is what Ripple is doing. Ripple is providing the technology, and they're getting banks to sign up now. And the amount of banks that are signing up for Ripple is tremendous. Now, Ripple has tied itself to a crypto called XP. And XP, I think it's XPP, I think it's XPP. This is going to be potentially the new Bitcoin because it is tied into Ripple. And you look at the board of directors of Ripple, and these people are very serious. Like they're like full-on globalists. And what Charles showed me, and it blew my mind, is that the way that Ripple is opening up its blockchain network and Coinbase exchanges in various countries along the way, it is basically mirroring One Belt, One Road. So this is what I talk about when the Chinese are creating, and even this country in its own way, are creating a world beneath our feet. And we have no idea. We have no idea what's taking place. And we won't have any idea until all of a sudden we're staring this Leviathan straight in the eyes. And I believe that the major point in time we're going to see the potential for a tectonic shift is in January of 2020, when we have that Saturn-Pluto conjunction in the sign of Capricorn. It's going to be really significant, right around 20 degrees in Capricorn. And I feel like that is a window for a pivot on the global economy. Now, all the bandwidth, all the cable is being laid right now. It's all happening. And when you look at One Belt, One Road, really, I put this up on Facebook. When you look at it, it looks like a dragon. It looks like it has the head of the dragon, which is in Western Europe, and then the tail of the dragon, which is in China. It's really, really fascinating. So, in addition to just creating these channels for trade with One Belt, One Road, both maritime and overland, right? They're not only doing that, but they're creating economic, blockchain, cryptocurrent channels all along the way. And it's all going to be 5G because you need 5G in order to theoretically fuel real-time transactions like a company that Ripple is basically has developed and is now marketing. You're gonna, and I'm not sitting here being an advocate per se for Ripple or for 5G. I'm just telling you that based on the new economic infrastructure, 5G is going to be essential because of their ability to move cryptocurrent assets very quickly, real time. You can't really do it right now. It's not quite there. It is not quite there. And when that happens, the scales of economies are going to change. It is going to be incredibly disruptive, really disruptive. It's going to be mind-blowing. And the scale which the world, especially around one belt, one road, will be like. And apparently, the center of all this is going to be NEOM, the new big giant beautiful Wizard of Oz smart city in Saudi Arabia. That's going to be like the center point between Asia and Europe. It's going to be sort of this nexus hub of One Belt, One Road. Now, that said, 5G also has military capabilities. And I'm going to talk about that today as well. And this is why Trump is so hot and heavy and horny for 5G, because he knows that the Chinese, who have absolutely zero conscience whatsoever, zero conscience. The Chinese, I mean, in some ways, they're kind of this. Look, this is not an indictment on anybody who is Asian per se. I'm just giving you historical facts, and I'll give you one historical fact. This is all you need to know about sort of this collective and organizing principle, right? Of the Chinese. I'm not talking Korean. I'm saying Chinese mind. Okay. So in China brought slaves over. They brought slaves over, just like all the other countries bringing slaves over. You know what China did to their slaves, their male slaves? They castrated them. They wanted them for one generation. That's it. They wanted, 20 to 30 years worth of work out of whoever was there. And after that, kaput. They didn't want their influence in their culture. They didn't want them marrying into their culture. I'm just giving you this as an example. And to this day, somebody sent me an email. The Chinese are still harvesting organs, and they harvest them live. If you're a dissident in China, guess what? They wrap you up, they strap you in. You're in a van, you're on the way to the airport, and you are not anesthetized. They are taking organs out of you on the way to the airport. Okay, so just think about that. This is a system that has even less conscience than the system we're in, which is borderline. This is a borderline system. It's like a borderline personality. The Chinese cross that line. They'll be benevolent. I'm not here to bash China. I'm just giving you sort of the facts. They'll be benevolent. They're really good at cultivating relationships. They'll go into Africa. They won't tear shit up. They won't create social revolutions like the West does. Create chaos. Put a new strongman in, which has been our model. They're more agrarian in that regard. They're going and they'll cultivate the relationship, they'll cultivate the hierarchy, and that's what they do. But they're still doing it. Okay. So Trump knows this. He knows that the Chinese are angling for trade dominance and they're angling for technological dominance. And 5G is a freaking weapon. Not only is it going to be this network that will be zippity, 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 zippity for these transactions, for the money changers to do things at the speed of light, which is really what they want to do. It's also a weapon. So Trump understands this. The United States military understands this, and they want to implement it as fast as possible because there could be a real possibility we can get into a 5G freaking war, which would make nuclear war completely obsolete. You know, Trump is also a builder, and he knows that the smart cities are coming here in this country. They're built. Another example: Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, a whole world being rolled out right underneath our feet, and we're too busy yelling at each other, yammering at each other, shaking fists at each other, getting into arguments over holiday dinners with each other. You know, this is the strategy. This is really the strategy. Divide and conquer, divide and conquer. Meanwhile, there's a whole other world being created right beneath our feet. It's happening. So part of this is happening because the cat's out of the bag. You know, you're going to have the Chinese, you know, basically muscling in for global currency trade dominance. And the United States will be left behind if they cannot counter this shit. It's just the way it is. And I'm not for it. This is not how I want to see the world develop. I think that there are probably much more benign technologies that we could be investing in. I'm just giving you the lay of the land. Okay? You know, I'm a messenger in this realm. I'm not saying, no, this is great. In fact, I don't really think it's great. But this is what people don't understand, is that there is a game being played at a really high level, or really, really high level. And we only see a very, very small glimpse or window into that game. And it would be great. And I will stand by my principles and my ideals to the best of my ability. But I know that there's something else going on out there. And at the end of the day, they don't give a shit about my ideals or my morals or whatever, because they're going to roll their thing out regardless. And we need to begin to think about that and understand that. Now, can we stop it? Possibly. They did it, and they stopped 5G in Marin County. It's not out of the question. I'd be in favor of it. You know, it's like, come on, let's figure out something else. You know, 4G is not bad, but the reason why they're going to 5G because it is a complete dominance and control grid, and one part of the world is going to have it. That's one of the reasons why it's taking place. It's very interesting. Now, the other thing that's interesting is our good friend in the Middle East, Israel. Israel, who has been tied to the United States in terms of military-industrial complex in creating Greater Israel, also known as the Annan Project, in the Middle East, right? Our good partners, our good buddies, our best friends, the only true democracy in the Middle East, right? Well, for all these years, we've been tied into our best buddies and our best pals. Well, what are they doing? They're making a pivot. Now, all of a sudden, they're working with China. They're turning over one of their ports in Haifa. They're turning it over to the Chinese to run it. The United States has been running that port for a long time. Well, they're turning it over, and they are working hand in glove with the Chinese to create one belt and one road. And they're using technology, much of which was sourced in this country. And this is the big global game. And we can see where the pivot is taking place. This is a major pivot. And if Trump is really, really smart, he's going to understand this. And if he's really true to his aims about making America great again, at some point, he's going to have to face some very, very tough decisions around his best buddy over in the Fertile Crescent. So I'm just giving you the lay of the land and showing you to the best of my ability what's happening at a global level with one belt, one road, and then the 5G networks. Okay? Michael says 5G equals electronic concentration. Absolutely. Paula says, I think humanity will come out better on the other side of this world war in economics and spirituality. It has to. It has to. I'd agree with that. I would agree with that. What else do we have here in the chat room? The world is changing. Let's not assume it's all for more evil. I would agree with Paula. You know, I just glanced over this article, and it said why Trumpism will exist beyond Trumpism. Okay? Why Trumpism will exist beyond Trumpism. First of all, I don't like the name Trumpism. I mean, this is what happened with Trump. Trump was an alarm clock. He was a shrill alarm clock to wake people the fuck up. Finally, we had somebody who awkwardly, abrasively, aggressively, rudely, sarcastically, humorously, insightfully became the voice of the Vox Populi. That's what Trump did. He untied people's tongues. He became the mouthpiece for people who'd been sitting on their tongues for decades. And as a result of that, the awakening process has gone from really the fifth chakra, which is the throat, right, to the third eye. Because now we're seeing what's going on. And I'm getting into a little QAnon territory here. I've got a love-hate relationship with QAnon. I love the fact that people are waking up. God bless. Beautiful, right? Beautiful. Do I throw down with QAnon? Not really. That's just not my thing. But that awakening process is valid. And that awakening process is real. And that is the opening of the third eye in the collective. This is where the seeing occurs, right? From a chakra perspective, this is what happened. Trump came in and went, ugh, and pulled open the collective fifth chakra. That's what he did. The third and the fifth were already kind of there in some ways. Like Obama was kind of a fourth chakra guy. Theoretically, we love hope and change, tolerance. It's kind of a weak fourth chakra pulse. He's a Leo. Leo rules the heart. Okay, we get it. Thank you very much. Go back now. We're gonna unplug the fifth chakra. And now collectively we're unplugging the collective third eye here in this country and the world. And we will never be the same after this. Now, will 5G come in and try to control everything? Quite possible. Shut it down, block our third eye? No, it's open now. And we cannot go back. We can't go back. So this is one of the things that Trump has done. And again, I don't like everything Trump does. I don't. I kicked that son-in-law of his to the curb. To the curb, like, at the edge of the Hudson River. That's where I'd kick him. The edge of the Atlantic. And I think Jared Kushner is dangerous, absolutely dangerous. I don't agree with everything Trump does, but from an awakening process, he's been an essential figure, and that cannot be denied. And what's also happened is it's brought to the surface, and I talked about this before. It's brought to the surface really since 1967, 68, up until 2016, 2017. Right? Summer of Love. The Summer of Love ends with Trump. Like, Trump is somebody who grew up in the 60s. Trump is a contemporary of the Weather Underground. Trump is a contemporary of Bill Ayers. But he is not part of that group. That is not, Trump did not go through the Summer of Love in the same way that his contemporaries from the 1960s did. Jane Fonda, Tom Hayden, Bill Ayers. Different. So Trump kind of signals the end of that. And astrologically, we can get into that even more. I was thinking about this, by the way. I was really thinking about this. So if you look at what was going on in the 1960s, right? We had that Uranus-Pluto conjunction in Virgo during the Summer of Love. And it set a lot of things into motion. We also had Neptune in Scorpio during that time. If you look at two of the outer planets right now, right? We have Neptune in Pisces, which has been in opposition to Uranus and Pluto in Virgo since 2011, when Neptune went into Pisces. So we're having this kind of elasticity across time from the Summer of Love and the rise of the Dionysian culture, and Neptune kind of undoing all of that. Okay. Neptune in Scorpio is going to have this opposition with Uranus and Taurus. Again, elasticity across time. Elasticity across time. And this is where we are. So what we've seen with Trump, and we've seen clearly, because it's like it's smoked out sort of the last 40 years of education and how the universities were hijacked by the social Marxists. And it's happened. And now guess what's taking place? We're going to be in the process of reversing that. And this is going to be, and I'm not saying that this is something like, am I like going, yeah, reverse it. Like, I'd like to have a little bit of balance. I like a little Dionysus, right? Every now and then I like to get a little, a little tipsy. Every now and then. And then I like my structure, my form, my work. I think balance is really important. When we swing too far on one side, it creates an imbalance. But at the same time, it feels like cyclically, that's just what's in the air. And this is where we're going. And this is what Trump has begat and brought into our lives and the life of the planet. I mean, it's not just Trump. Go to Europe. Look at this guy in Italy. Look at what's happening in Hungary. They sure as hell tried it over in England with Farage. And this is not even necessarily the globalists versus the nationalists. This is about consciousness. This is about consciousness. Because when we get into the nationalist model theoretically, what we're essentially saying, essentially what we're saying is that the individual can take care of themselves, that the individual has the right to live their life, that the individual is empowered to be able to make decisions, to have property, to have these sort of touch points that represent the individual's manifestation in third dimensional reality. The globalists they don't give a shit about the individual. What they want is groups. They want large groups in order to sell ideas to, right? Because if you get a group, it's easier to sell an idea to a group, right? Versus, because you might have all varieties of individuality. Like in our chat room today, I bet you that we would agree on about 80% of the things that I'm talking about. And there would be a disagreement, maybe 70. There'd be a disagreement with 30% of what I'm talking about. Now, if you're an advertiser, how do you parse that out, right? Or if you're selling a product, you're selling an idea, it's much easier to sell to a group of people who all agree upon the same thing. Much easier. And that's really the globalist model. So what we're talking about here is the individual versus the group. And it is a model of consciousness. And it's being played out. Right? And it is being played out. And I'll tell you right now, the real testing ground is going to be Pluto and Aquarius when we get into the transformation of group models and ideas. So it's either top down or bottom up, right? Top down or bottom up. I'm a bottom up guy. I'm not a top down guy. Top down is like, oh, what's best for everybody, right? Everybody. And we're going to have these very wide and broad generalized what's best for everybody's. I'm not a one-size-fits-all guy. Where is Jasper? Jasper's split. Okay, so guess what? What was Jasper? Jasper was the masculine, right? The Apollonian. And now, you see, we have the Dionysian, the feminine. You see, it's all about balance. It's all about balance. Right there, real time. Nature communicating with us through this little presentation. XRP, thank you, Ann Holloman. XRP is the cryptocurrency that is connected to Ripple. All right. Jasper, man. Yeah. Jasper's dreaming the new world into being. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to give you some hard data around one belt, one road. Okay, so I'm going to get into a little bit of this. And I'm going to read excerpts. I'm going to skip around. But it's going to, hey, there's BB. Oh, she's over in Prague. XRP is centralized bankster's coin. Absolutely right. This is why they're like running it through one belt, one road, right, Paula? Am I right? Yeah. And that's why you look on the board of Ripple, it's all globalists. It's all globalists. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to get into a couple of articles. I'm just going to jump around. So this is a article from March 15th of this past year. It's my mother's birthday. It's from Visual Capitalist. It's called Visualizing China's Most Ambitious Mega Project. And it's got a timeline. It's got a bunch of wheels, and it's got the graph. And the graph is the line of One Belt, One Road. And I swear to God, it looks like a dragon. Okay, so I'm just going to read this to you. It says, costing between 4 and 8 trillion and affecting 65 countries, China's One Belt, One Road, OBOR initiative is the granddaddy of all mega projects. By the time of its estimated completion in 2049, OBOR will stretch from the edge of East Asia all the way to East Africa and Central Europe. And it will impact a lengthy list of countries that account for 62% of the world's population and 40% of its economic output. Silk Road 2.0. The tangible concept behind OBOR is to build an extensive network of infrastructure, including railways, roads, pipelines, and utility grids that will link China to the rest of Asia, as well as Africa and Europe. The multi-trillion-dollar project will fill the infrastructure gap that currently inhibits economic growth potential on the world's largest continent. But it has other important objectives as well. By connecting all these economies together, China is hoping to become the gatekeeper for a new platform of international trade and cooperation and integration, which means that China will become the de facto head of the New World Order. This is what the Rothschilds are betting on. Well, if the United States and its recalcitrant people and their quaint notions of freedom and personal property rights are going to get in the way, well, screw them. We're just going to throw down behind China. Bang. Right? This is what's happening. So, but that's not all. If China's corridor does what it's supposed to, the countries in it will see more social and cultural links, financial cooperation, and a merger of policy goals and objectives to accomplish. Naturally, this will expand the clout and influence of China, and it may even create the eventual scaffolding for the renminbi to flourish as a trade currency and eventually a reserve currency. When billions of dollars are at play, the stakes become higher. Although some countries agree with the OBOR initiative in principle, how it plays out in reality is a different story. Most of the funding for massive deep water ports, lengthy railroads, and power plants will be coming from the purse strings of Chinese companies. Some will be grants, but many are taking the form of loans. When countries default, there can be consequences. In Pakistan, for example, a deep water port in Gwadar is being funded by loans from Chinese banks to the tune of $16 billion. The only problem, the interest rate is over 13%, and if Pakistan defaults, China could end up taking all sorts of collateral as compensation, from coal mines to oil pipelines. Don't you think China's got a little investment in Pakistan to default? Absolutely. Why do you think the United States is in Afghanistan, by the way? It's called road blocking, besides opium trade. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka was unable to pay its $8 billion loan for the Hambantota port. In the middle of 2017, the country gave up the controlling interest in the port to a state-owned company in China in exchange for writing off the debt. Boys and girls, this is the model of the World Bank and the IMF, and China's just now getting into business. China now has a 99-year lease on the asset, quite useful, since it happens to be right in the middle of one of China's most important shipping lanes to Africa, the Middle East, and Europe. Of course, these countries are going to default in their loans. They have no leadership. They have no real production capacity. And if they get close, even remotely close, to being independent, like this is what happened with what's his name, Ceausescu. Ceausescu took on a big loan. He took on a big loan from the Russians. And guess what he did? He paid his loan off. And Ceausescu was one of these guys that was hounded and eventually, hunted down and tried as a war criminal and killed. But he actually paid his loan off. People had to starve, but he paid the loan off, right? Most of these countries don't pay the loans off. India, a very natural rival to China, has a few major qualms. India and China will join forces. They'll be forced to join forces. It'll happen. The China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC, goes right through Kashmir, a disputed territory. Chinese investment in maritime trade routes through the Indian Ocean could displace India's traditional regional dominance. India sees the OBOR mega project as lacking transparency. Of course, the Chinese are very stealthy. Meanwhile, with neighboring states such as Sri Lanka and Pakistan getting billions of dollars in investment from Chinese state-run companies, it likely creates one more issue that Indian Prime Minister Modi is not necessarily happy about either. Well, maybe Mr. Modi, you can get closer to Israel. So this is kind of this is the background of One Belt, One Road, what China's planning on doing, their economic model, and how they profit along the way. Okay? All right, let me give you another little thing. This is a much, much longer piece. It's called the Silk Road Briefing. It was written right around the same time. This is from Deason Shire and Associates, and Chris Devonshire Ellis is the author. I'm going to put these links in the description for today's show. This piece in particular is really detailed, and it's extremely high level and borderline scholastic level. Okay, so I'm just going to read you a few things here. China's Belt and Road Initiative is having a huge impact on the development of blockchain, VR, and other digital services, and the need to upgrade facilities and maximize profitability and delivery times for goods traversing Eurasia. Let's go back to that. It is going to be blockchain. It's not just, it is not just the railroads or the shipping lanes or the ports. It is also the digital infrastructure. So it is physical and digital, and what they're weaving is a web. There are two sides to the China phenomenon. One, the oft-mentioned exporting of Chinese goods to Europe and other parts of Asia, and the lesser discussed absolute need for the Communist Party to deliver to Chinese nationals. That supply chain, giving mainland China the goods they want, is a critical component of China's development and an issue the CPC must get right, even with Xi Jinping having submitted his position as leader. An unhappy Chinese population remains a serious concern within the one-party state. So they got to give them nice, shiny things. Give them the shiny things. Create this precarious balance between communist and capitalist, right? It could tilt either way. Yeah, but you got to give the people nice goodies, or else they're going to see an imbalance of wealth, and they're going to go, screw this. Even if it will cause me to get my liver sucked out on the way to the airport, I may have something to say about this. Accomplishing a win-win situation, however, in terms of bringing imported goods into China and exporting its own manufacturing services requires a massive Eurasian systems upgrade. Part of the tremendous potential of the Belt and Road Initiative is achieving that. Well, at the current juncture, it is the hardware that is being noticed. Everything from the building of ports in Sri Lanka, railways in Kenya, and bridges in Russia. It is the high-tech solutions that will really drive the efficiencies ahead and get products to consumers as effectively and inexpensively as possible. It is extremely good news for Europe and beyond that China's Communist Party absolutely must arrange to service their own population and is investing heavily to do so. But what are these new technologies and how will they be used? So he gets into all of this, right? He talks about 5G. Here it is. New technologies such as blockchain and 5G are being developed with the hardware in place. There should in future be no reason why trains should not remain intact and travel nonstop between China and EU. However, at present time, there are differing customs areas involved, and again, principally between China, the EAEU, and the EU. And these require the inspection of containers as well as the payment of customs duties. My firm, Deason Shire and Associates, is in discussion with Microsoft over developing a blockchain-based system that will allow clients the ability to complete a declaration form at one end of the route with transit and payment software in place to allow the relevant customs unions concerned to digitally verify what is in the container and to automatically process and pay any duties on them without having to actually stop the train. Boom. You see what's going on? Okay, so everything will be on the blockchain from the time it is either picked, produced, or manufactured and put on a train. Every single item on that train will have something associated with it. Even a piece of produce might have something associated with it, whether it's a crate in a container that has an RFID chip that is easily scannable, or perhaps, God forbid, there's something even inside the food itself that is part of the blockchain, which is not necessarily entirely out of the question, by the way. Okay? That's all going to be scannable, 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 real time, real time, real time. This is what it's all about. Efficiency. It's all about moving quickly, right? Outproducing, outperforming, getting money into pockets faster, less drag in the system. Well, clearly there'd be less people employed, because in order to stop those trains, somebody's got to get on that damn train. He's got to go in and go, yep, yep, yeah, yeah. Oh, no, hey, that person, see you later. You're gone. You're gone. Or however many people, the dozen people that get on that train, see you later. Hopefully, 1 out of 6 of you will be able to get a job in the switching department. And you can look at everything digitally. Okay. Send them along. Automation. This is all about automation, too. Means less jobs, people. Right? Less jobs. It's going to be interesting to see what the Chinese do with all those people in employment. Don't you think? I mean, that's probably the last place that automation is going to get to. Because they got so many people. The rest of the world could become automated, but not China. That's a precarious balance, isn't it? Really precarious balance. Sort of keeping them in the mid-20th century with production models and standards and employing a bunch of people versus becoming completely automated and go, oh, shit, we got no workforce anymore. What are we going to do these people? It's like, I don't think that they probably have some solution. It's probably repopulating other countries. Oh, guess what? This country doesn't have a lot of people. Let's send some of our people over there and help them build infrastructure. It's already happening in Siberia, by the way. The Russians have basically given up Siberia to the Chinese. Here we go. Let's see. So that facility alone can cut 3 to 4 days off travel time, as well as cut out corruption. Maybe. Corruption is always going to be part of the system. It's just different. Let's see. There's a lot here. 5G networks are expected to bring about a veritable revolution in business processes. This is from a globalist, right? I'm reading from a globalist perspective. The industrial Internet of Things, smart cities, self-driving cars, telemedicine, and other promising developments. We'll get a fresh start following the 5G standardization, which will be trialed in countries such as Russia as early as this summer's World Cup soccer finals and rolled out as a service by, what's the date? 2020. 2020, that is when 5G is born. Saturn conjunction Pluto in Capricorn. So this gives you an idea, right? This is like the globalists are just like, no, it's been so good. Can we have some more of this? That's the globalists. And they can't wait. Can't wait. Innovation, however, and especially the first place of securing China's needs, is required. And to this end, China and Russia have both embarked and will continue to embark on projects that combine technologies, including joint ventures with European businesses, including, examples are Siemens' involvement in the Moscow-Kazan high-speed rail, a project that may later extend all the way to Beijing, and the Chinese-funded development of electric vehicles in Bulgaria and Romania, following which China announced all Volvo cars would be electric by 2019, the first manufacturer to make such a statement. Clearly, China is looking to Europe to innovate, create, and develop new technologies to support global trade as the century progresses. Sitting on bedrock on basic Chinese needs, this is a good place to begin examining the opportunities that this can bring EU nations. So this guy is a globalist. He's hot and heavy. He's horny. He is horny for one belt, one road, and he's horny for 5G. This is what it's about, right? from the level of industrialization and globalization. Okay, now I'm going to get into another piece here, which is China's play for 5G dominance standards in the digital Silk Road. This is from ccpwatch.org. I'll post this again. China's strategic objectives in 5G development. China is positioning itself at the forefront of 5G, recognizing the fifth generation mobile communications will be a vital information expressway that can enhance future national competitiveness. 5G promises much higher speeds, greater capacity, and lower latency. We'll see. We'll see about that. Such next generation connectivity will enable the development of the Internet of Things and AI technologies, including self-driving cars and smart. You see, the same thing is repeated again and again and again. Self-driving cars, smart cities, the Internet of Things. This is the world that is being created right under our noses, right here. Meanwhile, we're haggling and yelling and barking. Hello, wake up. Well, some people think this will be a great thing. Oh, this is great. Oh, so wonderful. So wonderful. Yeah, it's wonderful when your refrigerator spies on you. Or it's wonderful if all of a sudden, your area just doesn't need any power anymore. We've noticed that there is a block of people in your area that tend to be, a little dissident. You're kind of thinking outside the system a little bit. You're hung up on these ideas of individualism and free will. And, we're just going to start to take some of your power away because that power can be used in other areas. We won't really tell you that that's really the case, but that's really the case. We're just going to literally and figuratively take your power away. Okay. As such, 5G seems critical to the future growth of China's vibrant digital economy. And not to mention its national ambitions in AI. Indeed, Chinese AI plans include a focus on 5G and call for improved low latency, high throughput transmission capabilities that these technologies will deliver. Anticipating its economic benefits, China has taken a very proactive approach to the testing and commercialization of 5G, on track to start its rollout in 2019. And China's 5G industry is expected to become a market of 1.5 trillion RMB. What is it? The Rupini or whatever that was, 180.5 billion by 2026. China seeks to shape new standards for 5G, thus ensuring its centrality in shaping this new ecosystem. It's not just technology, it's the ecosystem. After the International Telecommunications Union started in 2012, a program for international mobile telecommunication IMT systems aiming for 2020 and beyond, China's Ministry of Industry and Information Technology, MIIT, they've got one more I than MIT. That must be pretty important. It's like screw you, America, and MIT. We're going to have two T's, okay? We got one more, two I's. We got one more I than you. Take that, America. National Development and Reform Commission, NDRC, the Ministry of Science and Technology, MOST, jointly established China's IMD 2020 5G Promotion Group in February 2013. Its members include the China Academy of Information and Communications Technology, which is directly under MIIT, and major players like ZTE, Huawei, and Datang. This promotion group is intended to organize and coordinate Chinese participants in the process of standard setting while supporting implementation of a national major project on 5G. So again, they talk about 5G and the digital Silk Road. And then Huawei has become a key architect and contributor. They're making phones now and selling them in this country, if I'm not mistaken, to 5G standards. So China is going to get way out in front with 5G, way out in front. And that's why Trump is demanding that we get involved and make 5G a priority. Okay, so now I'm going to go dark side on you here. This is ultimately 5G can be used for all of these things, but 5G is also plain and simple a weapon. It can be switched into a weapon. It's the ultimate of inefficiency, don't you think? It is the ultimate inefficiency. It is the meridian. It's the meridians of the beast. 5G is the electronic meridians of the beast. So here we go. The same frequencies used for pain-inflicting crowd control weapons form the foundation of the network that will tie together more than 50 billion devices as part of the Internet of Things. This is from a Steemit post. The author is Sinistar. So I'm going to post this as well. Please share this article with your friends and family. 5G radiation dangers, 11 reasons to be concerned. Like it or not, we're rapidly moving into the world of 5G or fifth generation cellular telecommunications. Why? Because the frequency bandwidths used currently by cell phones and similar technologies are becoming saturated. Also because we live in a world where people want more. 5G and the Internet of Things that goes with it promises to give us more. But more what? Super fast download speeds. 5G and IoT promises to connect us in our homes, schools, workplaces, cities, parks, and open spaces to over 1 trillion objects around the world. It promises cars that drive themselves, washing machines that order their own washing powder and softener, plus, of course, super fast downloads and streaming. According to Fortune.com, 5G will support at least 100 billion devices. It will be 10 to 100 times faster than current 4G technology. 4G was already 10 times faster than 3G. It'll bring download speed up to 10 gigabytes per second. This would let us have an entire billion of people send each other data in close to no time, thus improving productivity. See, that's the real-time factor of 5G. What is 5G? 5G's offered mind-blowing data capabilities, practically unrestricted call volumes, and your infinite data broadcast. It does this by 5G using largely untapped bandwidth of the millimeter wave, which is in between 30 gigahertz and 300 gigahertz, as well as some lower and mid-range frequencies. So it goes through 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G. Data bandwidth here. So 1G started in 1970 to 1980. 2G was 90 to 2004. 3G 2004 to 2010. 4G is where we are now, and 5G 2020. The data bandwidth, 1G 2K PBS, 2G 64K. 3G, we really thought we were flying with 2 Mbps, right? We thought we were flying. And then 4G, 1 gigabyte per second, right? And then, so it's like it's like a kilobyte, megabyte, gigabyte, and then higher than 1 gigabyte per second, 5G. So 1G was analog, 2G was digital, 3G is CDMA, 2000 UMTS Edge, 4G Wi-Fi Max, Wi-Fi LTE, and 5G is WWW. The multiplexing was FDMA for 1G, 2G TDMA, CDMA, 3G CDMA, 4G CDMA, and 5G. Those will all be all CDMA. And then 4G and 5G, they're all packet. They're all packet information. It comes to switching. So there's all this sort of data, here's where it started, here's where we're headed. Okay. There are some other 5G features of 5G you need to be aware of. Wireless cell antennas galore. Talked about this, the MIMOs. The MIMOs are going to be everywhere. Millimeter waves do not travel well through buildings, and they tend to be absorbed by rain and plants. This interferes with the signal. Added to this, higher frequency waves like MMWs also have a much shorter wavelengths that can't travel far. To counter this problem, 5G will utilize smaller cell stations and the technology of beamforming that'll scramble, unscramble, redirect packets of data on a non-interference path back to us. This could mean wireless antennas on every lamppost, utility pole, home, and business throughout entire neighborhoods, towns, and cities. We will be blanketed with this shit, okay? You won't be able to go anywhere without running into one of these little MIMOs. Current 4G cell towers have about a dozen or so antenna ports to support all communication. The new smaller 5G cell towers will be MIMO, multiple input, multiple output, and carry about 100 ports. These towers will be about 4 feet tall as opposed to the usual 90 feet towers currently erected around us. Good luck on protecting the little MIMOs. I just have a feeling that they're going to have to be really situated where people will not be able to get a hold of them. Because I could see anti-5G activists, right, just bashing these little memos. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into the dangers of 5G. Okay, the dangers of 5G. This is 11 reasons to be concerned. The USA is currently leading the way on 5G. Well, apparently China's right behind them. At the June 2016 press conference, where the FCC's head, Tom Wheeler, announced the opening up of low, mid, and high spectrums, there was no mention of health effects whatsoever. But the dangers are real. 5G radiation dangers. Thousands of studies link low-level wireless frequency radiation exposures to a long list of adverse biological effects, including DNA and single double-strand breaks. Great. So we can see birth defects rise, oxidative damage, disruption of cell metabolism, increased blood-brain barrier permeability. Well, isn't that just wonderful? So all those nice little nanoarrays and all those nice little nanobots and nanoparticulates have a wider vector to come in and occupy the space between our brain and the blood-brain barrier. Melatonin reduction. Good luck with sleeping. Disruption to brain glucose metabolism. Generation of stress proteins. That means people are going to get what? Yeah. Let's not also forget that in 2011, the World Health Organization classified radio frequency radiation as possible to be carcinogen. Man. So here we go. Number one, a denser soup of electrosmog. We're going to be bombarded by really high frequencies at low, short-range intensities, creating yet more complicated, denser soup of electrosmog. Two, the effects on the skin. The biggest concern is how these new wavelengths will affect the skin. The human body has between 2 million and 4 million sweat ducts. Dr. Ben Shai of Hebrew University, Israel, explains that our sweat ducts act like an array of heliacal antennas when exposed to these wavelengths, meaning that we become more conductive. A recent New York study, which experimented with 60 gigahertz waves, stated the analysis of penetration depth showed that more than 90% of the transmitted power is absorbed in the epidermis and dermis layer. We're taking it in. The effects of MMWs, as studied by Dr. Yale Stein of Hebrew University, is said to also cause humans physical pain as our nociceptors flare up in recognition of the wave as a damaging stimuli. So we're looking at the possibilities of many skin diseases and cancer, as well as physical pain in the skin, effects on the eyes. In 1994, a study found that low-level millimeter microwave radiation produced lens opacity in rats, which is linked to the production of cataracts. An experiment conducted by the Medical Research Institute of Kanazawa Medical University found that 60 gigahertz millimeter wave antennas can cause thermal energies of varying types of level. The thermal effects induced by millimeter waves can apparently penetrate below the surface of the eye. A 2003 Chinese study has also found damage to the lens epithelial cells of rabbits after 8 hours of exposure to microwave radiation. In a 2009 study conducted by the College of Physicians and Surgeons in Pakistan, concluded that EMFs emitted by a mobile phone can cause derangement of chicken embryo retinal differentiation. We're only two like dangers of 5G into this thing. We're three. We've got 8 more. Effects on the heart, effects on the immune system, effects on cell growth rates, effects on bacteria resistance, effects on plant health, effects on the atmosphere and depletion of fossil fuels. Number 10, the disruption of the natural ecosystem. And number 11, most 5G studies are misleading. Live testing's already been done. All right. What are the experts saying? Here's what experts are saying about 5G. Along with 5G, there's another thing coming, the Internet of Things. If you look at it combined, the radiation level is going to increase tremendously, and yet the industry is very excited about it. They project 5G IoT business to be a $7 trillion business. See, they don't give a shit. They don't give a shit. It's just a new way for them to profit, reinvent the fucking wheel. People get sick. Well, the medical industry is going to love it. They're probably, clapping. Oh, we love 5G. medical effects on people. Oh, great. We're there to fix them. Customer for life. Man, oh man, oh man. How about this guy? This is Olga's woman. Olga Sheehan, former World Health Organization employee and author of No Safe Place. I should interview this woman. The plans to beam highly penetrated 5G milliwave radiation at us from space must surely be one of the greatest follies ever conceived of by mankind. There will be nowhere safe to live. It would irradiate everyone, including the most vulnerable to harm from radiofrequency radiation, pregnant women, unborn children, young children, teenagers, men of reproductive age, the elderly, the disabled, and the chronically ill. I guess that's about everybody. Ronald Powell, PhD, letter to the FCC. I think this is where, once we get into 5G, I think this is where the fertility rates go down. And I think this is part of a zero population growth program. That's what it feels like, right? This shit is evil. Evil, 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 evil. What else do we have here? The new 5G wireless technology involves millimeter waves, extremely high frequencies, producing photons of much greater energy than even 4G and Wi-Fi. Allowing this technology to be used without proving its safety is reckless in the extreme, as the millimeter waves are known to have a profound effect on all parts of the human body. Professor Trevor Marshall, Director of Autoimmunity Research Foundation, California. Let's see, what else do we have here? What can you do? How to protect yourself. My three-step approach to dealing with EMFs can be summarized as understand your exposures, understand the different types of EMFs and how they behave, hence the need to read and share articles like this one. Measure, use EMF meters to obtain readings and identify hotspots, mitigate your exposure, which means either eliminate the source, move further away from the source of radiation, or shield your body. I recommend the same approach with 5G. There is concern that current EMF meters are not able to measure the frequencies of MMWs. On this point, researcher Alastair Phillips from PowerWatch says current RF meters cover the frequency ranges proposed for most 5G in the next 3 years. So there you go. All right. Now let's talk about this from kind of a meta-historical perspective. So if you get into and read Edgar Cayce's Stories of Atlantis, which are quite interesting, one of the things that Cayce gets into, and let me see if I can find this. Let's see if I can find this. Let me see if I can find this. This is an important part of our discussion today. Okay. All right, I'm just going to get into Atlantopedia. Apparently, there's an Atlantopedia site. I was obsessed with Atlantis growing up, by the way. One of the ideas that was brought to the surface with Cayce was that Atlantis was working on this weapon, this mega weapon that the Atlanteans would send through the earth. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they were sending it through the earth to where present-day China is, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. And it was this weapon that destabilized the Atlantean substructure, which, by the way, wasn't just in the Atlantic Ocean. It was much more kind of spread out in global civilization, but really occurred primarily in like one area, right? And if that's the case, if Cayce was right, then what we're seeing, I believe, with 5G is the repeat performance or the reincarnation of such a weapon. And that 5G, and this is the part that we don't really know about. What would happen if you could amass all those 5 millimeter waves at the same time and take people's cell phone calls, their uploads, their downloads, the communication between the Internet of Things, the exchange of currency through the 5G network? What if we're able to concentrate that activity, that energy, and then direct it and guide it into the form of a weapon? Think about that for a moment. It's not impossible. And think about the power and the intensity, of that weapon if it could be guided and directed. It could split the earth in half, quite possibly. I'm just speculating here because, again, we're getting into this kind of Atlantean, Lemurian, will versus the spirit kind of dialectic and breakdown. And what I'm seeing is I'm seeing two forces that are scrambling to get control of 5G for all the reasons that they say are going to make the world a better place. More convenient, faster transactions, less dropped cell phones. Sure, there'll be quite a few casualties along the way, but hey, ultimately, who controls 5G probably controls the planet. That's my sense, okay? That's my sense. But it's not just controlling the bandwidth, because let's say you want to cut off somebody's transactions or somebody's power. That's all possible. But what if you could actually aggregate that energy and use it? That is what I believe is the real shadow behind 5G. That's just my own personal take. All right, let's get into the chat room. Let's see where everybody is. See if I still have an audience here. It's going to disrupt the master earthquakes. This is it, inventing my own plasma shield. Now I just got the master science. Good for you, 1-0 Dragon. There's one more coming. It's called the Millennial Reign, and it's coming fast. Yeah, I agree. It's going to hit us. It's going to hit us like a ton of bricks, man. And it's going to happen in the next 2 years. Next 2 years. C60. Paula, she says they found the C60 eats radiation, reverses cataracts. Paula, you're the C60 expert. Paula, can you recommend a C60 for people because there's a lot of controversy, confusion, misinformation around C60. Could you just drop that into the chat room, Paula, and maybe recommend a C60? Araman will be here. The Antichrist is definitely coming. Purple powder is a good source of C60, a non-Canuck. Purple powder. Robert, do you make shows dedicated to live readings? Yeah, I have. I used to do them all the time back on Blog Talk Radio. We'll do that more in the future when I get the ability to call in here. Paula, can you validate purple power? Is it any good? Question mark. I trust Paula. She's a smart woman. Hopefully she's there and will chime in. Let's see. It's more powerful antioxidant than vitamin C. Shungite is good to protect from. Yes, I've wired up my place with Shungite. I brought in the Shungite troops. It's Linda. Oh, Linda. There you are, of course. Hi, Linda. Nice to see you. Of course, I knew that. Slipped my mind for a second. Let's see. Anything else here in the chat room? Anything else going on? Any other? Let's see. Hey, Robert. Glad I caught you. Exciting times. Kid Rock could be a problem there tonight. I'm trying to warn people. I can feel something's up. Please, how do I spread the word asking for help? Where's Kid Rock going to be? Where's Kid Rock going to be? I laughed at Kid Rock telling the reporter he should be fired. Do not play with what. I really feel that past decisions do not apply for what people are feeling today. That's possible. I think things get played out over time. And if you believe in sort of the karmic body of the planet, I think that has something to do with it as well. Let's see, anybody else? Paula makes her own C60. The powder is out of stock everywhere. So I just bought 120 milliliters of 99.99% C60 from SES Research. There you go. Organite. I don't know about Organite. I used to really be into Organite. I still have it in my house. I'd like to think it works. Truly, I'd like to think it works. I really would. I have it around just in case. I think Organite works. I have quite a bit around. Yeah, I have it all over the place too. I got Organite. I got Shungite. I got a lot of ites around here. A lot of ites. Okay, hey, I think we're good. I think we're good, boys and girls. What do you think? I think we've covered a lot of territory today. I'm still waiting to find out where Kid Rock is going to be. Where's he going to be? Me too, but just saw it at Convincing Debunk. Yeah, I have it around the house just in case. You know, it looks some of the Organite looks pretty. At the very least, it's ornamental. Let me just look at the Kid Rock thing. See where's he going to be? Kid Rock spotted at the White House again. Joined by Kid Rock, John Rich, Mercy Me, and a Beach Boy. Oh, so Kid Rock is hanging out around the White House. Here's a picture. Kid Rock's a Capricorn. Is his name Richie? Is his last name Richie? Kid Rock. You know, his brother died. Interesting story about Kid Rock. He had a younger brother, I believe, and they had he comes from money. His father was a big car dealer in Michigan. And his brother died in a tractor accident. You know, it's one of those weird kind of rock and roll, hip hop sort of deaths, if you know what I'm saying. Kid Rock was spotted at the White House Thursday morning behaving well, Kid Rocky. According to a tweet from New York Times reporter, he was asked by journalists as he arrived, Kid Rock, should President Trump fire Jeff Sessions? Kid replied, fire you. Oh, man. Okay, so it's about copyright laws. So Trump, man, he's got like a hip hop summit going on, right? He's got Kid Rock, who's no longer a hip hop guy. Kid Rock is he's country and western. Okay, so his name is Richie, Bob Ritchie. And Mike Love of the Beach Boys was there, Sam of Sam and Dave, and John Rich of Big and Rich, who was on The Apprentice. He was a winner. They're all at the White House. Isn't that funny? That is really a lot of Michigan guys. Ted Nugent, the big Trump guy, he's from Michigan. Kid Rock's from Michigan. So we had Kid Rock and Kanye, the hip hop summit at the White House. Kid Rock's a country and western guy now. He rebranded himself. Americana, baby. All right. Anything else? Raise hell and eat cornbread. Eminem is from Michigan. He's from Detroit. He's from 8 Mile. That's where that name of the movie comes from, 8 Mile. All right. So Kid Rock plays Tampa tonight. SES Research is also out of C60. Sounds like there's a market for people to make C60. Sounds like if you are somebody who can make C60 and manufacture it, you might have a market on your hands. And that's a really American thing to do, is to create a product where there's a need. Black and white theme. Absolutely. You get the black and white theme. You get the black wrapper, the white wrapper, right? Okay. All right, I'm out of here. Hey, thank you for showing up today. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here and listening and being a part of the experience. I'll be back on Sunday night Oh, I'm not. I'm just telling you right now. Sunday night I won't be back. I mean, I'll be back, but I'm taking Sunday night off. I'm indulging in the game between the Chiefs and the Patriots. Watch my boy Pat Mahomes play a quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, so I will be back on Monday for 15 minutes of flame, but I will be taking Sunday off. That said, next Saturday we are doing a fantastic webinar with myself and Heather Eland around Jupiter and Sagittarius, the nodal shift, the eclipses, everything you need to know about 2019. It's going to be part of that webinar. It's going to be next Saturday. And it's going to be 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central Standard, 12 p.m. if you're on the West Coast. It's a great deal. You're going to have over 3 hours of information coming from me and Heather about everything you need to know that can empower your experience through 2019. So you can sign up now over on my Facebook page, or you can go to Astrology with Heather, and there's a sign up for the webinar there as well. Highly recommend it. We're a great team together. It's like, she's the micro, I'm the macro. It's a beautiful experience of combining, different perspectives, different energies. I taught Heather astrology, and she's taken off like a skyrocket. So if you want to be a part of that, I hope you show up, and there's still space available to do that. Okay? All right. God bless. Use your head to discern what's really hard to say what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. You've been listening and watching the Friday FARcast. Have a great day.